Hey guys, this is Ben, founder of No Accent Callers here, and today we are going to be ranking the best data sources when it comes to getting real estate homeowners, people that we are able to prospect to. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, one of the founders of No Accent Callers, currently a 400-person real estate call center where we do outbounding for wholesalers, investors, listing agents, flippers, pretty much nationwide. People as low as doing their first deal, all the way up to hedge funds calling for their commercial and multifamily acquisitions and listings. So this topic of data is very near and dear to my heart because this is the foundation of what we do across all of our agents. So let's get into it. But before I start ranking, I want to pull up this pyramid right here because this pyramid of data, phone system, volume, skills, and accents of the caller is what is required to do a call center at scale, whether it is a cold calling company like ourselves or even if you're trying to call yourself. In order to be successful doing outbound for real estate campaigns, you got to follow this. And as you see at the bottom right here, data is our foundation. And that's the whole point of this video, is because so many people try to do cold calling and they say it doesn't work. I promise you it's one of the best channels ever, but a lot of people do cold calling the wrong way. And the number one mistake that they make is they cheap out on data. They get the wrong list. It's inaccurate because it does not matter how good your phone system is. It does not matter how trained your callers are. Man, you could be the best person in the world, but if you're calling wrong homeowners, if you're calling broken numbers, if you're calling Spanish speakers and you can only speak English, it does not matter how good everything else is, you're going to have a bad campaign. Before we start, where does this rankings come from? We have pretty much tried every single one of these data providers here for our calling campaign. Some that worked and got us better results, some that did not. So this is all going to be based off the data that we have used within our own internal cold calling campaigns. So there's actually going to be a couple things that we take into account. First is going to be quality of data. By quality of data, we mean, the percentage of people that are wrong numbers, disconnected lines, the accuracy. We're also going to be taking into account the volume of data because one thing that most people don't know is that there is a finite amount of data. But if I have 100,000 records on PropStream for XYZ criteria, Deal Machine might have 125, PropWire might have 70. So that's what we mean by quantity of data, and then also price as well. Coming in at B tier, we have PropStream. PropStream is definitely one of the biggest and most common data sources that real estate professionals use. And some really good things that they have is their filtering and their data depth. You can get really specific on what you're looking for by state, county, market, zip code, and then also the actual motivation filters. And you also have the ability to stack that. Also, what I really like is their comping and analysis tools. It's a nice little plus to have. And then obviously you're able to get the data nationwide. Some cons is that the data is not the best. It's a little bit stale. So the example I'll use for data staleness would be pre-foreclosure. So pre-foreclosures, they go into the county. And a lot of these companies that we're going to be looking at right now, they all scrape from these counties. So let's say pre-foreclosure happens on 2/15. You might see that same record on PropStream on March 1st. So that's 14 days between when it was actually filed with the county, so when it was on PropStream. So that's what we mean by old, stale, and clunky data. So in the D tier next, we have Batch Leads. Batch Leads is an absolutely terrible company. Not only is their data incredibly old and stale, but the actual experience as a vendor was not good at all. Their data, especially at volume, because we were using them for a bit, was relatively expensive. And because they have a lot of this VC money, we were users of Batch Leads. We were power users of it, actually. We just saw that the wrong number percentage was 24, 25%. A lot of the numbers that they had that said they were English were Spanish speakers, and it was just a constant problem with their skip tracing as well too. So I do not recommend Batch Leads whatsoever. So next in our A tier, or our A tier, we actually have Deal Machine. I'm actually a really big fan of Deal Machine in terms of the economics and the amount of data that you're able to get for the low cost. Absolutely awesome. Their data is super high quality. Is it the best in the world? No, but the software is awesome. You could use the dialer. The wrong number rate, I think it was roughly like 17 to 18% when we tried them out. So it's not the best, but they have a lot of filters. It's really economical. You could have their dialer as well. So, if you are running a call center yourself and you're trying to make sure you have good data at an economical cost, I would definitely use Deal Machine. If you're a solo guy who wants to use the dialer as well too, the integrations are there. David who's the owner of Deal Machine, very, very smart guy, has an amazing product. So big shout out to Deal Machine. Next in the C tier, we have PropWire. At the end of the day, you get what you pay for. PropWire, it's free, but the data is really old. It's really stale. Everybody calls it. The list there in terms of like how deep you can go in terms of granularity, it's not the most, and most people just call that data. It's not good at all. So then coming into our S tier is DataFlick. Oh man, DataFlick's data is absolutely amazing. I think we see like a 92% correct data. So 8% of the numbers are wrong. They're AI data that ranks not the likelihood, like the probability that they're going to sell, but the likelihood that someone who is a homeowner is going to want to sell is absolutely awesome. And we use that for all of our clients because on DataFlick, they are essentially more of an AI machine learning company than they are a real estate one. And each property record that they have has 1,700 data points on there, and they use their machine learning model to figure out, which one is going to have the highest likelihood of wanting to sell and making sure you call those. And an easy example right there is who's going to have a higher likelihood of wanting to sell? Someone who just bought a house 4 days ago and moved into it, or the person who's lived there for 25 to 35 years who has high equity, who hasn't had permits pulled in quite some time, and whose property is over the age of 45 years old. You're going to want to be calling that person way more than the person who just moved. And then the last one, which we're going to put in C tier, is True People Search. Man, if you got a VA who is just going to manually type every single number in there, you could have a low-cost, free option to pull and skip trace your list. But if I were any of you guys and I was doing high-volume cold calling, I would using DataFlick 100%. So big shout out to DataFlick.